Hi guys, day 2 of our Native American tribes lessons. Today we're going to talk about the Apache, the Navajo, the Lakota, and the Tlingit. Start off with the Apache. The Apache lived in the southern Great Plains, including a lot of places like Texas, what is now considered Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. Again, the Apache people were made up, just like the tribes that we talked about on Tuesday. This group was made up of a lot of tribes that spoke the same language. Okay, you can see here there is a lot of different tribes names that were all considered Apache because they spoke that same language. Okay, so let's talk about Wickups and Teepees. The Apaches lived in Wickups and Teepees. Teepees were lived in when they were hunting buffalo because they were easily movable, okay? Wickups were more permanent, and they were used when they were staying in that one spot, their actual home, okay? So think about it. Which one's a Wickup and which one's a teepee, and why in this picture? Which one looks like it would be easier to move and set up somewhere else? I know which one. The one on the left for sure. We also know what the shape of a teepee is, okay? Apache Clothing. They made most of their clothing from leather and buckskin. Obviously, they hunted, okay, for those hides and animals, furs and things. They were decorated with fringes, beads, feathers, and shells to make them more vibrant. They had soft shoes called moccasins, okay? The food that they ate a lot of corn, they ate a lot of buffalo meat, they gathered berries and acorns. In order to hunt, they used bows and arrows to hunt those buffalo. They also were amazing basket weavers, and they used those baskets to store grain and food, especially when traveling, okay? They also used something called a travois to carry things when traveled. You can see that in the picture there, okay? A travois is a sled filled with items that would then be dragged by their dogs. Apache family life. The social life was based on family. They were family was just very important to this tribe, okay? All of the extended family lived together. When a man married, he left his family and moved in with his wife's family, actually, which I think is super interesting because normally we would think that in this time, men dominated a lot of society, but not with the Apaches, okay? The leader was a chief, okay? The leader of the family. The leader of tribes and families, okay? A chief earned his position by being the strongest and best leader, actually. All right, let's move on to the Navajo. This was the largest non-Pueblo group in the Southwest region. They lived in what would now be considered northern New Mexico. They lived peacefully with the Hopi people that we talked about on Tuesday, but they also raided other neighboring tribes at times, so there was obviously some conflict. Navajo food and homes. They learned farming, weaving, and jewelry making from the Pueblo people. They farmed corn, beans, and squash. They also hunted deer and rabbits and lived in hogans. Hogans are going to be those like dome-shaped houses that you see right here on the slide. Okay, they're made with log or stick frames, and then they're covered with mud or sod, which would be like a grassy substance. They usually had 6 or 8 sides and faced east because they believed that if you faced east, then you received the blessing of the day's first rays of sun. Sun was very important. Navajo family life, it was also a matriarchal society, which means that the lineage and inheritance was traced through the mother, okay? Women usually own the resources and the property, okay? Navajo are still around today and are still growing in Arizona. Now let's move on to the Lakota people. One of 3 groups of the Sioux in the Great Plains. That's what the Lakota is, okay? They lived in the Black Hills of what is now South Dakota. Lakota life, they had a lot of traditions. They were taught them at an early age. They believed that courage and fortitude, wisdom and generosity were valued in a person. Buffalo was central to their way of life, okay, like many other tribes. So, what did they use buffalo for, though? They used them to make sausages and roasted and boiled those sausages with vegetables. Whatever wasn't eaten was made into dried meat jerky. Skin was used for clothing, shoes, bags, or to cover teepees. Horns were used to make spoons, cups, and toys. Bones were used for tools and weapons. Tails were used to make fly brushes or whips. Stomach and intestines were cleaned and used to carry water. Ugh. And nothing was wasted. That's the takeaway here, guys. They believed if they were going to kill this buffalo, that they were going to use every single part. They weren't going to waste. Moving on to the Tlingit. They lived in what would now be considered the coastal northwest region of what is Alaska, actually. They controlled about 400 miles along the coast, okay? So Canada, Alaska area. Their food and villages. They fished a lot. These were fishermen. They fished for salmon, herring, halibut, and cod. They gathered clams and seaweed and shellfish from the shore. They traded resources as well. Their villages were along the water's edge, and their homes faced the sea. They lived in wooden plank houses that held several families always. They also built totem poles. They were known for making these beautiful totem poles. They were placed in front of community houses. So then people could see them when they were meeting or celebrating something. The designs were carved in them, and they showed symbols and stories. Raven and bear were common on totem poles. Those were some of their sacred animals. Okay. All right, that is it. Go ahead and complete your show it. If you have any questions, please let me know.